Yeah, it's working fine. So good morning, everyone. This wonderful spring morning that we're having here in San Juan County. The Fellowship of Spirit Zoom meeting is coming your way. My name is Ron Holloway, and I'll be your moderator for the day. We have an exciting and illuminating program for you today. Steve Barker is going to read us a spiritual reading. Fred Brown is going to play music as well as bring us our main message. So we're double blessed today, and triple blessed when you consider that Steve is going to be reading for us. So, I don't know, we seem to be not as many people here. Maybe people are just a little late in getting around today.
Or we need to have potluck every Sunday.
If we had a great turnout last week, and we had a great potluck after the meeting, and it was good food and good fellowship, and we had new people and we had old people, and we had not old people but people who have been around for a while. We become old when you're, if you live long enough. So anyway, it's all good. So we're looking forward to today's Fellowship of Spirit Zoom meeting. This is the 10th of April, 2022. So, Margaret, could you come and give us a prayer, please? Open us up.
Dear God, ever expanding, ever extending, unconditional love, thank you for your presence here with us and with all the people on Zoom, that we may all sense your wisdom coming to us and your peace of mind as we gather here, both in person and on Zoom. In the spirit of Christ consciousness, amen.
Thank you, Margaret. Could someone who is on Zoom tell us if they were able to hear Margaret? Susan? Yvette? Maybe they're not hearing anything that we're saying.
It's coming through the Zoom on my phone.
It is, okay. You can hear it? Okay, through your ear.
But not through there.
Well, it was a
Can
minute.
hear.
You can hear? Okay. And we can hear you over the, so we're just, sir, it seems to be sporadic.
No, it's working.
It's working. We just
You probably
have,
got noise reduction on your, on the microphone, so you're not hearing shh or anything.
yeah.
That goes on by
Maybe,
default.
anyway.
Does something back here need to be on?
No, there's nothing
I
that
haven't
we
turned
have
the PA
that's
on.
that's connected to anything back there. So, okay, do you have any announcements, Jerry?
No, board meeting after church.
We do have a board meeting after church. We need to keep in mind that for solstice, we are going to have a meeting in the park. We will have announcements about that further. So anyway, people are coming in, and so we're getting more and more people here in the church. So anyway, we have an opening prayer now. Fred is now going to play.
Which song does it say?
It says on here that you're going to play The Three Little Birds written by Bob Marley.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
I know you guys can. So this song, my theme today is kind of all in one. This song is by Bob Marley. This talk is sort of, I guess, about Bob Marley. More about the beliefs that shaped his music and how his music and his example has shaped and influenced modern culture. It's pretty ubiquitous now. Anyway, one of the things that Bob Marley, he was a very spiritual person, and pretty much all of his music came from a spiritual place in his later life and the life that we know him in. This song is a reference to the New Testament teaching of Christ to his disciples who, when they were going town to town, were worried about their comfort, were worried about their status, were worried about who was better than who was getting the most food, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, common human people things. And he looked into the fields and he said, behold, and I'm sure you all know the quote, behold the lilies of the valley and behold the birds. God takes care of them and God will take care of you if you take care of God's work. And so this little song called Three Little Birds is inspired by that. And one of the main themes that you'll see, and if you listen to Bob Marley's music from the catalog, I think of it as modern music from I'd say like 1965 to 1978. The themes are universal about love, joy, overcoming, and nature, and a return to nature. So this is Three Little Birds. Rise up this morning, smile at the rising sun. Three little birds pitched on my doorstep, singing sweet songs, a melody pure and true, saying, this is my message to you. They said, don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing is gonna be alright. Said, don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing is gonna be alright. Sing it with me. Rise up this morning, rose with the rising sun. Three little birds pitched by my doorstep, singing sweet songs, a melody pure and true. What did they say? Say, yeah, this is my message to you. They said, don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing is gonna be alright. They said, don't you worry about a thing. Oh, 'cause every little thing is gonna be alright. I said, every little thing is gonna be alright. I say, every little thing is gonna be alright.
All right. All right. Thank you, Fred. Like to let everybody know that out on the thing that we put things on as we come
YouTube.
through the door is,
Oh.
no, let me finish my thought. Okay, is that our Margaret Cheeseborough has been working diligently on an updated directory containing all the correct information for all of our members that she can gather up. Those endeavors are always, that's what it looks like. She has personalized each one of them, put people's names on them, and so yours is out there on the stand as you come in the door. So be sure and get it so that you'll have, be able to connect up with everybody in the fellowship. This one, it belongs to Fred Brown. There you go. All right. So let's say our reflection. Love produces a flow of energy that I now feel. I love others more than ever, and I feel privileged to be here. Love flows from one person to another as we create an atmosphere of holiness, and so it is. Okay, so we have another song by Fred Brown, Redemption Song.
Let me check the tunage here. Sometimes treat these guitars as percussive instruments, and the drummer, I'll beat them a little bit.
So you can put your hand. I'll add.
This song really was never ever popular and wasn't released to the radio. It became popular because after his death, Bob Marley died in 1981 of a brain tumor that was inoperable. He was actually shot, him and his wife, and several people in his house. There was an attempted assassination on his life in 1976. He was pretty lucky. He turned to the side. They shot his wife, actually, when she was getting out of the car going into the house, in the head. She survived. She's still with us at this day. When they stormed into the room, 7 people stormed into the house. He was able to turn when they shot him, so the bullets mostly grazed off his sternum and hit him in the arm and things. And one of the mythology and the truth about Bob Marley is he had a concert scheduled 2 days later, and he played that concert after being shot. So anyway, in 1981, after he died, the popularity of reggae music slowly grew, especially in Southern California and out and abroad. Started finding its way and the sound of ska into Great Britain, into the United Kingdom, into Australia. If you all remember, way back when there was a little group called the Police, 3 guys. They were English guys, and they played ska music, which is influenced by reggae, reggae music, which is just kind of a faster form of reggae music. Another big band that got very popular in the 90s, played ska type music and a little bit of reggae, was Sublime. So some more modern references, if you so you can look into some more modern references. But this song was released, a recording of it was released by Rita Marley in a compilation of Bob's work called Legends, and it's called Redemption Song. And it speaks to a core belief in Rastafarian ideology, and that parallels, I guess you could say, the ideas of the Jewish experience in the return to Zion, redemption, oppression, things of that nature. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. This is called Redemption Song. Pirates, yes, they robbed I, sold I to the merchant ship. Minutes after they took I from the bottomless pit. My hands were made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We flowered in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help me sing these songs of freedom? They're all I've ever had. Redemption songs. These songs songs of freedom, they're all I've ever had. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear of atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop by the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Oh, some say it's just a part of it, that we got to fulfill the book. Not me, oh, help me sing these songs of freedom, they're all I've ever had. Redemption songs, my songs of freedom, they're all I've ever had. I said, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but yourself can free your mind. Oh, have no fear of atomic energy, 'cause it will never, never stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Oh, some say it's just part of it, that we've got to fulfill that book. I said, no way, won't you help me sing these songs of freedom, they're all we'll ever have. Redemption songs, these songs of freedom, they're all we've ever had. All we've ever had, all we've ever had.
Thank you, Fred. And now comes the time for our spiritual reading by Steve Bartlett.
Oh, and we've got quite a few people in the sanctuary again today. This is great. I'm so happy to see you all here. And Fred, boy, you got some spirit going there. I love Bob Marley, and I'm dying to hear more about him. But I hope that I can contribute to the theme of that we're doing today. And so I'm going to have a reading from last month's Science of Mind, which dedicated itself to women, which is our minority when we talk about diversity, and the people that are really coming to the forefront, and thankfully so. The daily guides were written by a guy named, or a person, pardon me, named Steph Saint Armand. And this is one of those people, the very first one I've ever read, that defines themselves with the pronoun of they. In other words, sexuality does not play a part in their self-identity or how they identify to others. But the thing that struck me about all of the writings of this person is how they were so free of any kind of sexual alliteration, and then beautiful in their own right. So the one I'm reading about is called The Union of One. The two quotes. The first one is from Marianne Williamson. Love is the essential reality and our purpose on earth. To be consciously aware of it, to experience love in ourselves and others, is the meaning of life. That's from Marianne Williamson. The second is from Ernest Holmes. We are guided daily by divine intelligence into paths of peace, wherein the soul recognizes its source and meets it in joyful union, in complete at-one-ment. Okay, now from Steph. The purpose of this life is love. The greatest source of love is the storehouse of spirit. The one infinite power that is source of all things, and I am one in it, with it. There is a joyful union in the soul, in me, and the divine light. I am exactly where source begins and where it ends. And it is exactly where I am at all times. I am consciously aware of my unity with its wholeness and see creative intelligence bringing life this moment through me. My soul is encompassed with the gratitude and love, and the life I live is a glorious one. I let Spirit demonstrate through me a loving and a luxurious life. A heavenly union of peace and joy expands my mind and exhilarates my pulse. My undistracted awareness gives this moment all of its meaning, and my essential reality is what God creates through me. Every part of me awakens to the guidance of the brilliant mind. I peacefully find the path to love. The delivery system of infinite wonder works perfectly for me. I am at peace and in love with the vibrancy of who I am called to be and what I am asked to do. And in my joyful union with the allness of life, I am in complete at-one-ment with my highest self. The affirmation is, my greatest source of love is spirit, and I am in perfect union with my soul. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. So we have, as our main speaker today, Fred Brown, who has been a big part of this fellowship for quite a long time. And has a wide range of experience in life as well as in the spirit. Is his journey about learning about the spirit and about life, and he always shares with us useful things that are of the spirit. So let's give a warm welcome to Fred Brown. You gonna stand up?
No, that would look weird. That'd be too much nostril action.
I can make it. I can make it work.
I got big nostrils, so no.
Well, yeah.
Genes, I guess. Anyway, I just want to thank everybody that's here. I want to thank Steve for all of his support over the years. Sue, Carla, Marion, Margaret, our new members, Ron. I don't know where Jerry went. There she is, Jerry. And all of you that are out there, Susan, and specifically because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here. You created a space in this building and here in Aztec that you've got something that popped up. Is edifying everybody. Just click there. There it goes. You have mouse issues.
I had a mouse problem.
Anyway, I was going to keep this as a really simple talk. Some days I talk a lot. I talk about music, and because it's pretty much the thing that has encompassed most of my life in the last, say, 10 years, besides the spiritual journey and this wonderful place. And one of my first, I guess, in my journey, musical journey, one of my first, I guess, hints of spirituality and music outside of a church environment was in the music of Bob Marley. We went from El Paso, Texas, is where I was born and raised. Mostly on our radio station, it was either country music or classic rock. I mean, we had one or the other. That was kind of what was baked in. There was a lot of oldies, of course, back in the day, in the 70s, right? You know, I remember on TV, Sha Na Na and Happy Days and all that stuff. Gosh, I'm dating myself terribly here, but the music of Bob Marley really wasn't that present on the radio. When I joined the Navy, of course, I got to see a lot more of the world. And when I finally reached my final destination, I guess you say my active duty station, which was aboard a ship, it was in Long Beach, California. And it happened to be in 1987. And a couple of years earlier, they had started at the Long Beach Convention Center something they would call Bob Marley Day on the anniversary of his death. And people, I guess you'd say reggae artists from all over Southern California and from Jamaica and from the United Kingdom would come and have a concert. And it was kind of a free-for-all for a little while. And then it got more organized. It over time turned in what was called the Sunshine Fest. And that exported reggae throughout, I guess you'd say, a lot of the United States and in the bigger venues. Ubu Bantu, Burning Spear, go on. The Wailers, actually, Bunny Wailer, continued the band, which Bob Marley was part of, called Bob Marley and the Wailers before he was just Bob Marley. Rita continued, and now Bob Marley has a lot of his kids. He's got kids and grandkids that are in music now. There's one that's a rap artist. There's a couple that are pop artists. A couple that are actually actors too. So the Marleys have stayed in popular culture for quite a while. But my first introduction was there in Long Beach, California, trying to find something to do when I got off the ship and run into this signs and hear this music, and they'd set up bands in the parking lot. And I don't know if you've ever been to Long Beach, California, but they had back in the day a big, huge portrait of whales of the Whalen. If you know who Whalen is, he used to paint big, giant murals of whales. Does anybody remember that guy? All over the country. No, who remembers Whalen, huh? The Blue Spruce was there. Queen Mary was there. You know the Queen Mary. So there's a cultural landmark. Anyway, Spruce Goose. Long Beach, California, not the Blue Spruce, the Spruce Goose. There you go. So anyway, that's when I was introduced to it. And I think when anybody thinks of Bob Marley, they think of Jamaica, right? And how many people have been to Jamaica that are here? How many out there has been to Jamaica? Raise your hand. Anybody been to Jamaica?
One.
So what do you think about Jamaica when you think about Jamaica? What comes to mind?
It's just a tropical island, and it's there is a lot of reggae music there all the time.
What do you guys think? When you hear the word Jamaica, what do you think?
Reggae.
Beaches, reggae, right?
Yeah.
Right. Bob Marley, island, right? Well, one thing that Bob Marley was way into, and this is because of his religious beliefs, which was called, and that's what the title of this is. And it became a really deep dive for me because I found out things I had no idea about. Thought I knew a lot about reggae music and a little bit about Rasta, but I found I really knew absolutely nothing about it, where it really came from, what it was really all about. Number one, Bob Marley was not the originator of Rastafari belief. He was taught by a man named Thomas Howell. He was taught by a man named Marcus Garvey. Now, if anybody has ever heard of Marcus Garvey, you probably have not, because he was pretty much effectively erased from our, I guess you'd say, modern consciousness. But he was a Black Pan-African activist in New York City that came from Jamaica. He's considered Jamaica's first national hero, second only to Bob Marley. His contemporaries at the time was E.B. Du Bois. Does anybody know who E.B. Du Bois is? Okay. E.B. Du Bois is the one who founded the NAACP, the Advancement for African American. Eventually, anyway, there's a lot of history there, correct? He was the one that helped influence Martin Luther King, right? Well, Marcus Garvey's before all them. It was in the 1930s, 1920s. He was born to some rich people, some well-off people in Jamaica. He was educated in England and early, and then he went to college and university in New York City, where he was introduced to the teachings of Booker T. Washington. Does anybody know who Booker T. Washington is? Okay. Well, when he was reading in college about Booker T. Washington, and he kind of had a vision of what he would see when he came to the United States. Is in Jamaica, it was still a colony of British, and though those slaves were freed in 1866, it was still a feudal system, pretty much based off of a single governor who controlled everything. He expected, the land of the free and the home of the brave, that he would come and see African Americans that were free to do whatever they want, live however they want. And the reality that he was faced with was, of course, in 1920s, was a much different reality. Jim Crow laws, lynchings, hangings. So it was something that really hit him hard. And so I guess you'd say he lived from 1887 to 1940. He was a Jamaican political activist, a publisher, a journalist, a printer. He knew how to print and order. He was the founder of the President General of the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League, through which he declared himself the provisional president of Africa, the founder of the People's Party in Jamaica, which was a ground up political party. He died in 1940. Now, one of the men that in Jamaica that was an adherent of Marcus Garvey, and I won't get into all of Marcus Garvey's beliefs. There is a excellent PBS documentary that was done by the University of Massachusetts and the PBS station in Massachusetts on Marcus Garvey. It's about an hour and 6 minutes long. It's on YouTube. It goes in great detail about his life, his beliefs, but suffice it to say, what he believed and what he saw in his reality is that the African American that was brought from Africa would never have political freedom or the rights to freedom in the United States or any colony of Great Britain. Any of the colonial trappings, the law, the colonial law, all this was inherently and intrinsically bad for Africans. And the only way Africans could ever truly find their own way is to go back to Africa. And that's what he believed. And one thing that he did, and really kind of scared a lot of people in the United States, or caused a lot of fear in the United States, is he would sell these memberships into the UNIA. And he would, with the membership, you got a letter that he would publish himself, right? A weekly letter and a monthly letter of his speeches. And you would get the design for a uniform. And people that joined the UNIA in the 20s and 30s in the United States and in Jamaica would make these uniforms, military uniforms, and hold marches. And as a side note, you can look into this yourself. In the Department of Justice, one of his very first jobs, besides cracking down on bank robbers, I think you've heard of J. Edgar Hoover. One of his first jobs was to infiltrate Marcus Garvey's institution, and he did infiltrate it. This is a matter of historical fact. There's documents, everything. This is not made up conspiracy theory. They did infiltrate him. They did shut him down. Marcus Garvey's was a pretty influential person. Let's just say that, and especially among Jamaicans. And his African first, his disdain for colonial rule, colonial government, even the colonial government in Jamaica, kind of sparked what was called the Rastafari movement. One of the weird, strange beliefs, and where this comes from, people think of Rastafarian, right? And they think of Rasta. Well, that word means Ras-Tafari. And who that is a man. So there is no such thing as Rastafarianism. Rastafari is a man. His name, when he became king of Ethiopia, was Haile Selassie. Haile Selassie claimed to be the direct descendant, the 225th direct descendant of Queen Sheba and King Solomon. And when he took the throne in Ooh, let's see, we're gonna take the throne. In 1926, he declared that he was the rightful king and the king, and he's actually the first king in Africa to start what's now what they call the African Union, which is kind of like the United Nations, and it still exists. He actually started that. Anyway, when he was crowned, okay, and this is how a picture is 1,000 words, okay, and this is in the 30s. When he was crowned, there was pictures taken of his coronation, and a lot of the kings and queens of Europe came to his coronation. And there was a very famous picture that was circulated all over the world through the New York Times of the Queen of England bowing to Haile Selassie as he's sitting on his throne, curtsying to him. This was a signal to Marcus Garvey and a lot of people that the idea of an African king was as powerful or even more powerful than that of the queens and kings of England. And that's how a picture, just one picture, sparked an entire movement, okay? So Rastafari, that was his name before he was king. Ras means duke, Tafari was his name, Tafari Hakonnen was his name before he became Haile Selassie, which means the Lion of Judah, the King Lion of Judah. That's what it means in Sufi. Okay, so when he became king, he got a new name. So this man, Marcus Garvey, believed that this man was the eventual king and the second coming of Christ, and he taught people that this man was the second coming of Christ and that all people should go back to Ethiopia. Okay, these two people did not talk to each other. They had no connection to each other whatsoever, never met each other in life, did not communicate. So one man took this idea and started an entire movement off of it. And this is the truth. And another thing that they taught was that Africans should go back to the land, right? That Africans should follow the strict codes of Judaism. So a Rastafarian that follows the same thing, the same practices as an Orthodox Jew as far as diet. The dreadlocks come, they say, from the Nazarene tradition that also Jesus Christ was a part of. That's why Jesus was said to have long hair, of never cutting your hair. Remember Samson, never cut his hair. That's a sign of your devotion to God. So dreadlocks in the Rastafarian belief as your sign of your devotion to God. It's not because they don't want to cut their hair or they want to look crazy or anything like this. Another belief in Rastafarian culture of going back to the land is of nonviolence and of the use of cannabis. And this is kind of why I brought this all up. Because here in New Mexico, on April 2nd, cannabis is now legal to purchase and sell and buy and use, and it is no longer illegal. One of the main Rastafarian beliefs and one of Bob Marley's main political power was the promotion of legalization of marijuana starting in Jamaica. And believe it or not, that didn't actually happen until 2017. Which is kind of hard to believe, right? So we here in New Mexico are the 15th state to legalize recreational marijuana. We are 37 states that have legalized it for medicinal use. Rastafarians called marijuana cannabis indicus specifically. There is different forms of cannabis, just for sake of discussion. Cannabis aurealis is hemp. That's grown for the manufacture of textiles. I am wearing a totally made hemp shirt, made with natural dyes, made in Jamaica.
Oh, all right. That's a nice looking shirt.
So, anyway, this is not for smoking. Consequently, the United States Constitution is printed. All 127 copies were printed on paper. To this day, the best sales that you will find for any of your sailboats that you will buy are made of oiled hemp. They last the longest. They are the strongest. Best flags, maritime flags, are still to this day made of hemp. Why? Because it lasts a long time. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, and specifically in Rastafarian belief, it's Cannabis indicus. The name is indicative of where it comes from, the Indus Valley, India. Hence the name, they called marijuana ganja. They've got this from the Hindus and the Indians. And in 1866, when, believe this is all fact now, they've researched it. In 1866, when they outlawed slavery in Jamaica, they had to bring in indentured servants because slavery has never ended in this world. It never has. Now you just get a contract. And back then, you could sign a contract. And a lot of the slaves that they had to bring over to supplement the slaves that didn't want to work anymore in Jamaica and went to the hills were from India and from China. And with them, they brought their medicine, I guess you could say. And that's how Cannabis indicus was introduced to the island of Jamaica for the yogi practice of meditation. A lot of people do not know that in ancient and still to this day in the Hindu practice of yoga meditation, especially advanced yoga meditation, and this is only done for practices of, not just to get high, but the practices of meditation. It's one of the reasons, if you've ever seen a yogi demonstration of some of those guys, how they bend their bodies into all kinds of shapes and take pieces of swords and stick them through their bodies and have such great control of their mind and their body. Part of that meditation practice involves the use of cannabis and has for time immemorial. So anyway, that's a brief history of that, but they call, in the Rastafarian belief, has also changed over the years, okay? Now they, and here's a big reason why. Remember that the basic belief was that Haile Selassie, this king of Ethiopia, was the second coming of Christ, correct? Well, unfortunately, in 1962, he was overthrown by a communist insurrection and exiled. He gathered enough forces, came back, beat them back. They came back again in the 70s and finally drove him into basically house prison. And in 1974, they took over the country. And I think all of us that remember back in the 80s and 90s, the extreme famine that then hit Ethiopia. Does anybody remember that? Well, that's because the entire international community cut Ethiopia off, like I say, Western society, because now the communists were in charge over there. So great famine ensued. And of course, with most people's revolution and communist revolutions, and except for ours and maybe the one in France, they usually get taken over by a single party system and usually get taken over by a dictator. And then oppression assumes. And so Ethiopia is finally coming a little bit out of that in the modern time. But anyway, now there is and this is just a recent development. He actually died in 1975. They said he died in his sleep. Well, now there was a trial held and they forced the old government and they released files and he was actually strangled in his bed. And that actually came out about 3 or 4 years ago. So that's how Haile Selassie died. So, whoa, here's your second coming of Christ. He's dead now, right? What do you do now? So you can look this up, and there's interviews with Bob Marley when he was asked about this, and they all Rastafarians slowly shifted from a Rastafari centric to a Jesus centric and to a internal centric belief system. And now it's more called Rasta, not Rastafari. The entire Tafari thing is gone because he's dead. So in their belief system, one was being self-sufficient with the land, going back to the land, not killing. Violence in Rastafarian belief is abhorrent. Women were treated, they call their women queens, equal co-creators in their life. It's not exactly a, I should say, an egalitarian type of situation. There are still some Rastafarian communities in Ethiopia. There's still some Rastafarian communities in Jamaica, of course. To the whole, all believe the same thing as a lack of distaste for government in general and the belief that your salvation comes from within, that they have the same belief system that a lot of modern new thought, that the Christ is you, that you need to take care of yourself. And the use of cannabis is still part of the ceremony, and only for, not just to get high, but only in what they call the grounding ceremonies, which that you can see in the hippie culture that developed in the 70s. And if you guys ever seen the 70s show, that TV show that was on TV, well, they would have a similar little thing at the very end of the show where all of them were sitting around in their basement passing a joint around and talking about life. Well, that was what grounding ceremonies in Rastafarian religion is, or belief is, and that's basically the church, is everybody gets together and we sit down and we smoke the herb and we talk, we ground ourselves. One of the big teachings of Bob Marley himself that he always talked about was what the herb did for him, as it helped him disconnect himself from the oppression. They speak of Babylon. If you hear in the word Babylon, word Babylon to them is the Western oppression of the African. Anything that has to do with colonialism, anything that has to do with that is Babylon. Nowadays, Babylon is referred to as modern society, greed, capitalism, right? So it's morphed over time. And I think in that sense, it is true. That will eat your soul and will disconnect you, connect you from spirituality. So that's some of the core beliefs of Rastafarian. There's a lot more. Let's see. They use a lot of the Old Testament, they believe that marijuana is the tree of life, which I always thought was interesting when we would sing the song Tree of Life here. I did know that. And I always liked that little song because it always reminded me of a bunch of Jamaicans sitting around, yeah, the tree. But that was the biggest thing with Bob, and you see in his music, and in that last song that I shared with you, is that his idea was to think that what marijuana did medicinally for him was allowed him to stop and think outside the box. Think about the bigger picture, not just be caught up in the everything and running towards this and running towards that. He has a song called Mr. Brown, even in his early days, which talks about the Jamaicans in Jamaica who were part of the system running around. They would ride a burro, and the song is, you'd ride a burro in your suit to the town and to the bars and tell everybody how great you are. Oh, Mr. Brown, oh, Mr. Brown, you're just nothing but a clown, Mr. Brown. It's not an it never was an anti-white or a black supremacy movement. Parts of it did. I think Marcus Garvey's teaching can be directly traced back to the Nation of Islam. One of Marcus Garvey's followers in New York City was John Littleton. John Littleton is the father of Malcolm X. So some of the ideas of Marcus Garvey, did tend towards more, I guess you'd say, militant aspects. But in the Rastafarian belief, violence is totally abhorred. Matter of fact, that's the whole issue of grounding yourself. As if you had a problem with your neighbor, you would sit down and have a grounding ceremony and talk out your differences. The chief place was a place called Pinnacle in St. Anne's from about 1940, 1962. That's what Thomas Howell, it was a commune. Jamaican government hated it because they were off the grid. They were growing their own food. They were growing marijuana. They were selling marijuana. They were making money from selling marijuana. So they would raid it and 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 raid it. And that's kind of how the Rastafarian movement gained traction in Jamaica, was by the oppression of the police and the state government against their movement of independence within their own nation. And as we do see very often in society and spirituality, that religions and beliefs are a crucible, a fire. Something that breeds them is oppression. Something that breeds change is friction. And that's what created the Rastafarian movement. And nowadays, it's pretty much ubiquitous. The music, if you want to talk about where reggae music comes from, it's very, very kind of a linear line. Bob Marley and his friends, they listened to doo-wop music. They loved calypso music, Mighty Sparrow, Mr. Trench, Henry Belafonte was huge down there when he was growing up. Fats Domino, Chuck Berry. That's what influenced reggae music and took it from calypso. That's why it has a strange sounding beat. The beat's on the 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's more from the influence of Spanish and calypso music. And so calypso music, rock and roll, created what was called steady rock. And steady rock is what you mostly hear nowadays, what's called reggae. And Bob Marley and his people were the progenitors of steady rock. And ska, which was a faster form, but had more of the polka beat. Dun, 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 dun. Real excited lyrics. And if you lift to Bob Marley's catalog and the Wailers, you'll hear music that sounds like it was probably recorded in Detroit City. There's a lot of kind of real, dancey 50s ballroom style music as well as reggae. So that's really where it came from. Reggae now has influenced everything from house music, dance music, hip hop music, popular music, funk music, the culture of cannabis use medicinally and recreationally is spread throughout the world. So that's Bob Marley. That's all I got.
Thank you, Fred.
I have a question.
Sure. Hopefully I can answer it. I have more questions than I have answers about some of this.
Talking about, back in the early 30s and 20s, how, one of the things that they believed in was to go back to their history, back to Jamaica. So why was there such fear here?
To Africa,
Oh, back to Africa, not just Jamaica. Okay.
because he was in New York City.
Why was there
He
such
moved to
fear?
New York City and he was going to school there and he stayed in New York City. And so he was up there leading, recruiting, proselytizing, building a membership here in the United States.
So they were more afraid of the membership than they were of the.
And the marches, even E.B. Du Bois didn't like it, because, they didn't like the fact, they thought he was, to be honest, they thought he was a charlatan. He would ride in big carriages with a big old plume, that he was the general and he was the king of, he called himself the king of Africa before Haile Selassie, you see what I'm saying? So this was a man that was constantly reinventing himself, and had the oratory powers to convince people. We must remember this is in the 30s, in the 20s. Something could happen on the other world and you wouldn't know about it for another year or 6 months. It's nothing like the world we live in now.
Or maybe 30 years.
Or never.
Or never.
Or never.
Right.
Depending on if somebody wanted you to know. Was Jamaica English at one time?
Yes, Jamaica was first established in the 1500s by the Spanish. In 1654, the English famously beat the Spanish Armada. I'm sure if you studied history back in the day, you may have learned about that, and took a lot of the Spanish colonies with them, and Jamaica was one of them. And it was a English colony, and like I said, from 1654 to 1866, that's a long time of slavery.
And they're still strongly communist now?
Jamaica, no. Jamaica's not communist at all. As a matter of fact, it's a parliamentary democracy. They had a constitution in 1962. Before then, it was a succession of governors, right? They say mostly beholden to American interests, which makes no sense to me because it was a British colony and British interests. I mean, anybody know who the East Indian Trading Company is? Okay. The
Also
first
a bastion of piracy.
Yes.
The people who
Well,
didn't really want to participate in any government they could go to Jamaica and they would be welcome.
Well, here's an interesting side note to piracy, or a pirate. Those were all created by the Queen of England. She would give you a commission to be a pirate, to go and fight the Dutch and to fight the Spanish, and she didn't have to use her own ships and people. So pirates were actually created by the English. That's a very little known thing, but I don't know, a lot of them. Like Succession, look at, hundreds of, years of piracy. I think there's 125 years of piracy.
Way of doing business.
The way of doing business. You know what I mean? Why send your ships when you can hire somebody and give them the money and pay them to go fight the Spanish for you? And that's what piracy was.
Mercenaries.
Mercenaries, yeah, Brinkley mercenaries. And yes, Jamaica was a home to the pirate fleets.
It was a haven for
Yeah.
them. They were not persecuted there. They know
Nope.
that they could go there and not be hounded by the,
Because they had a letter from the crown,
well, right.
and they were in the crown. That was the place, right?
Anyway, what you got, Steve?
Yeah, do you know what the motivation was for the attempted assassination of Bob
Well,
Marley?
that is so interesting. You can really look into this, and I'm sure there's going to be more documents coming out through their Freedom of Information Act over time. But yeah, the people that were paid, and one guy went on trial that actually survived, because some of them didn't survive attacking them, obviously, because his friends were around and nearby. Some got away anonymously, some were killed in the attempt of killing him. One man survived and was put on trial. He says that he was paid by the government to do it. Of course, the government denied that, right? But they're really scared of Bob Marley because he was so popular. He was gaining so much popularity. And when he would use the terms war, but when it was misinterpreted by a lot of people, he was talking about the war for your soul, the war for your mind, the war for your heart. Because he knew, in Rastafarian beliefs, change will only come if it comes from within you. And you change, you can change the world. And that's what they believed. So when he was talking about war, he was talking about the war of ideas, the war of oppression. But that, he became so popular, he was more popular than the governor of Jamaica. Yeah, so,
Fred,
yes.
yeah, okay. So you just struck so many chords with me. More than, okay, talking about genealogy for Haile Selassie. I mean, I can take mine back to 2,000 years ago. So that's easy enough to do. So
That's
same,
before DNA, though.
right, but so anyway, so I can follow my bloodline back then. And then, but just because I can go back that far to James, brother of Jesus, and all of that. Cannabis was the most popular medicine and used exclusively for so many people. And the thing is that most people are unaware that our body has an endocannabinoid system. So you really, that is what helps to heal. So, I mean, we use it as medicine. I have lots of tinctures, creams, things like that we use of cannabis. When you talked about the pirates, God, talking about bloodlines, Henry Morgan, cousin of mine. So yeah, he was governor of Jamaica.
Yep, at one time he was.
He used to go back and forth on the coastline of Belize too. So like I said, you just hit everything. I almost wanted to become Rasta when you started. Wait a minute. The only thing is I like opera.
Well, an interesting thing is where you're at in Belize, and also Jamaica and Puerto Rico and Cuba, they were all, before the Spanish, were all inhabited by a group of people called the Taino, which came from, they now know through DNA, come from what's called the Arawak tribe. They were the indigenous people of Jamaica. And of course, when the Spanish came, they estimate that about 90% of them were killed by smallpox.
Yeah, actually, when you're going back, that 90% of not just them, but all North and South America were killed by, all of that right after Columbus came. So we didn't have to do any fighting as
Not as much.
Europeans coming over. You didn't have to do a whole lot.
No.
History is so warped, what they hand you.
Well, it's usually written by the victor.
Yeah. And Victor and I sometimes don't get along very well.
Amen, sister. Amen.
Anybody else have anything like to talk to Fred about? Oops. Well, Fred, we appreciate your talk, and let's give him a hand.
Thank you.
So, it's always interesting. It's always interesting. And he always has good things to bring to us. And, here at Fellowship of Spirit, we like to look at everything. We don't hold any way of thinking or being, any religion or politics above another. We like to look at everything, and so we're not afraid of anything. We can look at anything. We don't, and we neither endorse nor oppose any causes. That's the way that we are. The only thing that we really advocate for is love, divine love. We were reading about that this morning in our new book that we're starting to really enjoy, because it's very flowery. There's lots of words written by a Russian lady, and but it's called the Secret of Wisdom. Is that it? The Secret Wisdom, and we've been doing it now about 3-4 weeks, and it's really starting to gel for many of us. It's really starting to show the beauty of it, and it talks. This morning it was all about that. So, thank you, Fred. And so, what do we have now? A song?
Probably.
Yeah. So Fred's now going to.
So here's
You know
another
what?
song.
Let's do the celebration of abundance
Okay.
before you do that.
We could do that.
And so.
Do I get a uniform with this donation?
A uniform?
And a plume? I want a plume.
Only if it's made of hemp.
There you
So,
go. Right?
so let's hold over our hearts that which we want to contribute. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive through infinity. I am prosperous.
It comes back up.
Oh, okay. Now, if you want to sing while we're doing it, it'd be all right too. We used to do that. We used to play
Turn it this
during the
way.
thing.
Turn it this way. So this song came off of an album called Exodus, one of his last albums. It's called One Love / People Get Together. One love, one heart. Let's get together and feel alright. Singing everybody, one love. Singing on the children, one heart. Let's thanks and praise to the Lord, and we will feel alright. Let's get together. Oh, sorry. Let's get together. One love. Oh, here we go. Let them all pass. that dirty remarks, one love. There is one question that I'd really like to ask, one heart. Is there the sinner that goes untold? Will he pay the price for the beauty that he holds? Everybody sing one love. Hear the children crying, one heart. Let's get together and feel alright. Hear the children crying, one love. Hear the children crying, one heart. Give thanks and praise to the Lord, and we will feel alright. I said give thanks and praise to the Lord, and we will feel alright. So I just did the one love part.
All right. Verse 1 and 3, we're gonna eliminate 4 and 5. So anyway, thank you very much, Fred. We love it. We love it. We love music, and we love the way that Fred does it, the way that Margaret does it. You know, we feel like that music enhances our whole ceremony, because when we come here and we gather and we say prayers and we're talking about, you know, creating an atmosphere of holiness, we are making this a sacred place. This space between these walls, we are creating a sacred altar that we can come and share love. And music changes our vibration, and it raises our frequency when we're thinking about that stuff. And so we thank you, Fred, for coming and helping us. So that's about it. We're going to have a quick board meeting right after this meeting. And so at this time, are there any announcements? Jenny, do you have an announcement?
Yeah, I'm just gonna segue in with that whole idea of music raising the vibration. The symphony played here last night. It plays in Durango this afternoon. Tuesday evening, and I think it's at the Honeycutt Theater, but 7 o'clock, Caliente is doing their spring show, which was interrupted 2 years ago, so this is, you know, yay!
Yay.
And then Friday night, 7 o'clock at the Honeycutt Theater is the African drum performance. So you can just bounce from all different kinds of, you know, styles of music and be happy at the end of the week.
This is the San Juan College Symphony.
That, no, it's
San Juan
the
County.
San Juan Symphony that goes between Durango and Farmington.
Okay,
So that's today.
so it's called the San Juan Symphony.
Yes,
Okay.
and then San Juan College will have to host the Caliente on Tuesday and the drum on Friday.
Okay. So San Juan County is just awash with sounds of music and springtime and talent. And so you can go and partake in any of these that you want. Where can we find out about where these things are playing, Jenny?
The KSUT community calendar
That's a good one, yes.
Yeah,
at
And-
ksut.org.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Tune in and listen and donate, please. Support your local radio station, and I'm not joking.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So there we go. We got a way to connect, and we got a reason to connect. So, all right. Does anyone want to give a benediction? Well, Father, Mother God, we thank you for this opportunity to come together and share in your glory and your love in the sunlight of your Spirit. We thank you for protecting us and keeping us safe and helping us to grow as eternal beings. We thank you for Fred, for Steve, for Jerry, for all of our members, each equal in their own way. We thank you for bringing us all together in this holy place that you have given us. We ask that you would protect us and keep us safe as we go on our journey in the next week. We ask that you would be with those that are in war-torn areas of our planet, and be with them and assist them to get through all the difficulties that all of that war brings. We ask that you would Be with our first responders that protect us, our firemen and our EMTs and our doctors and our nurses and all those who care for us in a special way. I ask that you lift them up to you, that you might bless them, our military, our people who protect us, everyone who is there to ensure our way of life continues. In the name of Christ consciousness, namaste.
Namaste.
All right.